That's RBI making that big move last evening in the battle against bad loans by identifying 12 accounts which total almost 25% of the total NPAs, the gross NPAs of the banking sector. Now, the impact is visible in stock prices. Let's just pull up some of these names. Electrosteel Steel, which is down 16%. Bhushan is still down about 9%. Alok, Videocon. A whole clutch of these companies, which of course have huge debt issues, that's where the stocks are down. Let's get in Lata to get a better understanding of everything that's happening. Lata, you've been speaking to bankers, to subject experts, to advisors to the finance ministry as well. Help us sort of get our hands around this.
Okay, well, first macros, which the market is less worried about. One that I think it's an extremely clinical process that the Reserve Bank has put in. So it's coming out of this, what is essentially a messy situation, not intended for regulators, in a very clean fashion. Very objective criteria put in, like 5,000 crores and 60% already declared as NPA, not dirtying its hands by trying to identify. Secondly, it's also not dirtying its hands in terms of trying to resolve it. All it is giving is deadlines for banks to resolve it. So they're not getting into the process, coming out very clean from the whole process. The third, and this is both a plus and a minus, at the moment the judiciary seems to have bought into the NCLT process. It doesn't look like it's going to be a 2-year process, that it will be challenged in the courts, and the courts will say the bankruptcy code is against the fundamental rights of the citizen, and that his equity is being taken away without due consideration. The way the High Court has so far handled it, it looks like the process will remain with the NCLT. Of course, the Supreme Court can have another view, but with recent judgments, I think the judiciary also is behind this process of resolving assets to the benefit of the larger good. That is the macro. Coming back to stock markets, I think there were 2 or 3 important things we got from the economic advisor to the finance ministry, Sanjeev Sanyal. One, he said that there is no proposal to merge weak bank with strong banks as a way of rationalizing the capital. That will be a big relief to the likes of Bank of Baroda, Indian Bank, and even State Bank for that matter, that they will not be saddled with weak banks. A second positive that he said is that all options are available on the table to capitalize banks. He does not believe that everything is going to end up in the liquidation, 100% liquidation scenario. So while 40% is provided for, 60% more has to be provided. No, they expect that some haircuts will be taken, and therefore most of the assets will be put back on their feet. And therefore higher provisioning will be needed. And for that, all options are on the table. Therefore, something like a recapitalization bond may not be out of the realms of thinking. He clearly said that. So that's a positive in terms of active thinking on capitalization. And a third positive we got from him is that even NIIF may be buying stressed assets. We don't know. Maybe NTPC will buy. That's something which Mr. Pujari said, the Power Secretary. So the other arms of the government will also be abetting the speedy resolution of assets, and therefore at the moment it looks like there is light at the end of the day. But obviously the hesitant reaction of the markets is understandable. There is near-term pain of higher provisioning before a medium-term and a longer-term positive of assets getting resolved.
But just to get your perspective on this, are we talking about a lot of near-term pain? Because I guess provisioning levels already for these stressed accounts must be fairly high, 40% thereabouts. So are we talking about substantial jump then in the
that is the number no one has as of now, because 40% is enough provided the NCLT decides or the creditors committee is able to find a buyer with 50% debt retained as unsustainable. Then you're provided for 40%. You would only provide for 10%. What if, when you're trying to sell off the asset, 80% is unsustainable? Then you have to provide for 40%. What if nobody buys and it goes into liquidation? Then balance 60% has to be provided. Which assets will find sustainability at 40% of the loans being retained? Which asset will retain 60%? Who will be the buyer? We don't have that number. The only thing that Sanjeev Sanyal told us, and some of the others, bankers were guessing, is that the equity holding need not go to zero. It is possible that some buyers will emerge for SR and Bhushan. So although the market is beating down Bhushan Steel, that is not the majority opinion we got. The opinion is split. Some brokers, some equity experts like Ajay Srivastava, Sameer Arora and Nilesh Shah believe that equity value will erode because in an NCLT situation, essentially debt is superior to equity. But there are others like Sanjeev Sanyal and bankers of like Mr. Thakkar of UCO Bank who said that it is possible that when the creditors sit, somebody comes, a JSW comes and buys a Bhushan, or a Bhushan's promoter himself buys it, so equity need not be zero. Jury is out.
But I